Major League Soccer's record spend in January, the top 5 cities in the United States without a pro soccer team, and we get to know Texas's Rio Grande Valley. That and more on today's edition of Morning Kickaround. Hello and welcome to the show. You found your way to Morning Kickaround, the show that dots the map of the American soccer landscape. My name, Robert Kerr, and to my side, Jason Davis. How you feeling?
I'm good. I'm recovering a little bit from Benito Bowl last night. For me and I'm a football guy. I grew up on American football. Super Bowl's a big deal, but this was combined with my wife's culture last night. So I'm still recovering. Ate a lot of food, both American stuff you would find at a normal Super Bowl party and the Puerto Rican cuisine of my wife's culture. So but I'm here, Rob. I'm ready to go.
How hype was your wife for that halftime show?
She was pretty hyped. Yeah, she was ready. All of the Boricua that I was with last night were very much into this. And I think it's interesting that, even though his music may not be everybody's cup of tea, if you are Puerto Rican, if you have any connection to the island, he still represents you. So it was incredible. I'm sure Tulsa Mario, my Boricua friend from Oklahoma, was enjoying himself last night watching Benito do his thing on the field in Santa Clara. But obviously we're a soccer show, so I don't want to railroad us into a whole lot of talk about Puerto Rico. Go find me on Blue Sky for Puerto Rico talk. That's where I'm dropping all my stuff and getting it all out.
So we were originally supposed to be doing our Kick-A-THON after the Super Bowl, and I'm glad we rescheduled that. So we'll bring up our Kick-A-THON 2026. If you didn't know, we are doing our first ever marathon show next Wednesday, February 18th, 9:30 until 12:30-ish, or maybe even beyond. We're going to have special guests, some fun games, some special surprises, and more. So join us on February 18th for Kick-A-THON 2026.
Tell a friend. Bring some, I don't know how you do that exactly. It is a digital exercise. Bring somebody, share your phone with somebody if you're watching on your phone, pass the message on that we're building an American soccer community here. We're trying to be a big tent. We're also trying to talk about things that people aren't talking about, right? I had a very interesting conversation with somebody on Friday, another content creator. And, we didn't start Morning Kickaround aiming to necessarily be the show we are, which I think is fascinating to me. Like, we were kind of going to be an all soccer show. We talked about Liverpool quite a bit in the early days of Morning Kickaround.
I'm glad those days are over.
For the moment, yeah. Well, let's leave Liverpool over there for the moment. But yeah, this thing about how this show has organically moved to be a show to represent and tell the stories of the growth of the game from the bottom up. And obviously pro soccer is not exactly organic all the time, but there is that sense that communities are coming together to bring soccer to their backyards, in a moment where that is possible in ways it was not possible before. So I'm excited for Kick-A-THON because I think it is going to be a celebration of that. I mean, we may even do a live dotting of the map of clubs that have popped up in not just now, but like take stock of where we are from, say, the beginning of Major League Soccer to this current moment.
Yeah, lots of happen and continues to happen. It gives us plenty of news to cover here on Morning Kickaround. A good point that the topics kind of met in between our knowledge bases, and it really has spurred on, the theme of the show, dotting the map, is continues every single day. Every time we check the Morning Kickaround Discord server and the news and talk to any of our friends within the game, there's a plan for a new team, league, or supporters group somewhere going on at any given time. The Discord server, there's its own channel for ultras that are, either just made their own team, are planning to make their own team, or have concepts of a plan to start a team. And you know how to access the Morning Kickaround Discord server? You become an MK Ultra for just a few bucks a month. You can get priority access to comments on screen during live shows, bonus content, and the Discord server filled with threads of great conversations.
Can I also throw in that we are in currently we are in discussions behind the scenes as to what our incentives, our perks need to be for those who step up and support the show, like Mr. Bob in New Mexico, who continually brings the fire and the support. We appreciate you. We want to recognize, I mean, yes, for a couple bucks a month, access to the community, you'll be part of the Discord. You'll be able to, suggest channels to get stuff in there that we aren't talking about yet because we want to grow. We got a lot of ultras who are starting their own clubs or involved in starting clubs who are telling those stories. That's all great. But if you go above and beyond and you drop a bigger chunk of cash on you, we want to make sure that we are giving you something worthy of that. So we're working on that, Rob. We'll figure those things out. We'll get those ready for the big show on next Wednesday. Not this Wednesday, next Wednesday.
Yeah, February 18th, Kick-A-THON 2026. Can't wait to see everyone there and have, an extended run and play some games and have a little bit of a different approach to the show. On today's episode, we have a great guest from the very southern part of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. So get to know our district, Rio Grande Valley, coming up at the top of the hour. And maybe we can come back around to the tiers and maybe some behind the scenes stuff at the end of the program. But there's some newsy stuff, too, to get at the front end. But until then, like we said, become a member if you'd like to support the show. Support us on social media. We're on all the platforms at Kickaround. So show some support and just even a like or a follow across the platforms at Kickaround, or write us on the email, morningkickaround@gmail.com. If you've got a question or a white paper of sorts, a tip, something that you've learned, there's always, like I said, there's always something going on across this continent in American soccer. So if you have something like that, or if you have a business inquiry, morningkickaround@gmail.com. You ready to get to the show, Jason?
Let's go.
All right, let's kick those long balls on Monday's edition of Morning Kickaround. We are in the early parts of February, and the tabulators have counted up all the dollary dues spent across the month of January. And according to sources at the Independent and reporting from the Independent, Major League Soccer, the fourth most spending league in the world in the month of January, smashing their own record set just last year.
Yeah, this graphic that we grabbed to illustrate this was put together by Transfer Market. It's in Portuguese, as you can see, the Brazilian league. And I'm not going to, Rob attempted to say that word. I'm not going to attempt to say that word, even though, I don't know. It's got a couple of things going on there that are a little bit too hard for me. Anyway, Serie A in Brazil is how I will describe the league. They are highlighted here because this was focused on that league, but clearly you can see MLS is behind Brazil at number 4 with 144 million euros. I believe this is the currency here is euros. You convert that, it's roughly 140 something million dollars. Like, it's the euro and the dollar are not exactly one for one right now. In fact, I think maybe the US dollar has lost some value compared to the euro, but still it's in that area, right? So what does it mean, Rob? What does it mean that MLS is spending at this level, right? I think you said it sets a record. It is interesting that this is happening ahead of the calendar switch in 2027, because we imagine, I think it's right to believe, that MLS is going to be spending more heavily in the summer next year than they ever have before, ahead of the calendar switch in the proper market, right? The MLS can spend in the summer. Obviously, they have a secondary transfer window, but it makes it more difficult to go out and get players when you're in the middle of your season. Those players often don't want to come to MLS while they're still looking for jobs in Europe before the European season starts. And again, MLS has aligned the windows this year in a way that makes it less advantageous for players they can't really do that anymore, right? Because it used to be the MLS window would close, the European window will remain open. And so you had this problem where, why am I going to sign with MLS ahead of the European window closing when I might have opportunities in Europe? So if you line those up, you could do better. And maybe this summer will also be a fairly heavy spending period for Major League Soccer. I mean, again, is this all good? I don't know. I mean, it certainly is interesting and reflective of something that Major League Soccer is popping up here when you have the Premier League, Serie A, two of the most established leagues in the world, Brazil, where there's been, I guess, an influx of cash. I mean, Flamengo went out and signed Paquetá for a record fee,
Yeah.
which I didn't see coming. Obviously, MLS is here. The parity MLS makes this more interesting to me. I got to unpack that a little bit. The Saudi Pro League, we know where all their money comes from, so it is just interesting.
Yeah, hopefully the spending from the executives translates into quality on the field. I think, even the hardest cynics on Major League Soccer could agree that the quality has risen over the last few years. And in I think the spending totals show that maybe the rules and the purse strings have loosened, have changed a bit. And that Major League Soccer is now just about fully, it'll probably go fully within the global player market once that calendar changed, but they're getting awfully close there. Major League Soccer actually, involved in conversations in countries across the world as a destination or a buyer or even a place to get some young players. Obviously, there's players going over to Europe, and it wasn't too long ago where the Major League Soccer was an isolationist in the global game.
Yeah, the way MLS used to operate was extremely spendthrift. And, again, this is not to say that you give the league a pass or that it's all celebrations and plaudits when they're spending this kind of money necessarily. Again, it's all in the context. But if you are old enough or have been covering this league long enough, you remember the times when MLS would not sign a player unless they were on a free. And MLS would not sign players, would not bring loan players in without very strict controls about options to buy and things of that nature, right? There were so many restrictions on spending that it didn't feel like I'm going to say this, and I know it's loaded, but a real soccer league, right? Like it was ours. We had to kind of make peace with that. I mean, some people didn't. Some people rejected MLS, and fine, that's your right to reject MLS as a expression of American soccer. And you think it's wrong, that's fine. But those of us who kind of accepted what MLS was, we still gave it our attention. We gave it our money. We gave it our time. We put effort in to cover it like it was a major sports league. But it kind of always came up short in that sense that it didn't feel like it was really engaged with the same game that we were seeing on television from places abroad. There are still lots of things about MLS that will keep it from being connected exactly. But now we have true transfer spending, excuse me, at a level that makes a list like this, for whatever that's worth, and a calendar switch, which is about transfers, but will also be about being able to look at MLS and say it fits in this bigger picture of what we think of when we think of a major soccer league. Now, I will also point out, Brazil does their own calendar and their own stuff. And I don't think anybody in Brazil is like, well, we don't have a real soccer league. And there's a little bit of that inferiority complex thing that comes out with all of this too.
Yeah, the reporting that I indicated at the top from The Independent, they note that 8 clubs set new internal transfer records, with Austin FC doing so twice, while nearly half of Major League Soccer teams have completed a club record signing in the past 2 years. So it's not just Inter Miami or not just those couple teams at the top of the pile. It is, across the league, more spending is happening. And with the loosening of the rules, there is not quite there, but almost, we want that player, let's get that player, which I think would get us into the real category, right?
Yeah. And, again, what level of pull does MLS have is still kind of an evolving question, right? And obviously it depends on the marketplace. Like, I mean, the market, it depends on the town, it depends on the city, it depends on the location. And again, I will be curious to see how the calendar switch changes or doesn't some of the advantages that we presume certain cities have. And again, whether that means that players who might not have considered MLS before will consider it, even if MLS doesn't rank. And you can't, the biggest problem for MLS in terms of the global player market, if it really does have massive aspirations of being a top league, is that it cannot engage in the UEFA Champions League, right? We talked about this, I think, last week when we were talking to John Arnold about the idea of CONMEBOL and CONCACAF getting together because that is a way. Now, Copa Libertadores is a great competition with an incredible history. It's very important to South America, but for Mexico and MLS, there are limitations on what you can do, not just competing for people's attention and money, but for players, because those players are going to say, well, I might rather play in Belgium, or I might rather play in, Denmark, because I can play in the Champions League, than come to Major League Soccer.
All right, we'll keep a look on that and see if these numbers keep on increasing as we get to that calendar change. And we'll see what happens later in the year, pre and post World Cup. But let's move on to our next story here in Long Balls. The clock is ticking until the USL Championship season begins, and there is yet to be resolution on the labor situation with no CBA in place. Over the weekend, the USLPA posted an update about the offerings, maybe be giving with one hand and taking with the other. Do we have the USL graphic in front of us to see exactly what they posted?
No, we do not. I didn't know there was a graphic, Rob. I was not informed that there was a graphic.
Forgive me.
Okay, so what does the graphic say? What does it indicate?
So the USLPA over the weekend, following a non-productive meeting last week, they're saying that the reports saying that the league offered a $40K minimum salary, which is an increase, but only if players accept cheaper contracts that include easier buyouts. The raises are being used as leverage to weaken the standards elsewhere. The USLPA continues that this proposal shows how the league negotiates. They're giving with one hand and then taking with the other.
I mean, that's a negotiation, right? A negotiation is a give and take. And I'm not suggesting that the USL players are wrong in how they are framing this necessarily. But, the contentious elements of this negotiation mean that nobody's going to end up feeling great at the end of the day, right? The owners, if they give, are going to say, well, this hurts our bottom line. And now maybe in their minds, their businesses are a little less stable or a little less assured. Like, it's easy to kind of cast, and I'm just doing this for our own mental health as much as anything, Rob. But it's easy to cast the owners as fat cats sitting in their ivory towers, drinking the most expensive alcohol available, and laughing at the plebes and the people that are scrambling for a dollar here or there. It's very easy to cast American soccer owners as people who are trying to take advantage of players and don't care about fans. That is not true in every case. There may be some examples. Sure. There may be some owners who are, cartoon characters, but most of the time, these are relatively small businesses being run on very small or negative margins, right? So, again, does that justify not giving professional standards or paying proper wages to the player pool, to the people that are going to ultimately make or break this idea of a first division and pro rel and the growth of USL and all those things? If the idea is that players are replaceable, that no matter what, no matter what you're trying to do, that the players are sort of the last thing you have to worry about, partly because there is a massive pool of players, right? Good players play, what level? But if you stop caring about the level of your league, meaning if you are, not that you're trying to be bad, but if you're not actively pursuing the best possible soccer as you build out your first division plan, your pyramid, and pro rel, well, then you can kind of excuse all of this, right? Who cares what we pay? We're still going to be able to find players. We will be able to find players. There will always be a player willing to take what we offer. So, and that's a problem for the Players Association, right? Like, as a soccer fan and as somebody who wants to support USL in their efforts, I want to see them put the best possible product on the field. I think it would be a terrible look. It'd be a travesty If USL launches a first division and we are watching that league going, oh my God, this is terrible. Why are we, what is, we're calling this first division? You're making a mockery of the first division. You're just doing it in name so you can build out a pyramid, so you can institute pro rel, so you can try to use that not only to capture attention from soccer fans who want it, but to build out a business or entice people to invest at the bottom of the pyramid so you can get more expansion fees. Right? That would obviously make USL look terrible. But if they don't care about that or they think people will look past that, he puts the players in a very difficult position. From the player's side, and we talked about this too, Rob, from the player side, this is only the player side. We do not have a rebuttal from the USL. We don't have a response, right? We don't see their side of the equation. We don't know what their books look like, right? We hear things anecdotally. There are things reported. You and I have talked to USL operators who will tell you, it costs us this much money to turn a field over from minor league baseball to soccer. It costs this much money to travel. It costs this much money to pay people to do our concessions. It costs this much money. Like, we know that these are not businesses raking in cash. So what is fair for the players to ask? So this report, by the way, comes from Backheeled. I think John Morrissey has written something. I'm currently not paying for Backheeled, so maybe there are details we don't have, Rob. But again, so Scred is saying, I'm going to be honest, this graphic doesn't really show a huge gap in proposals, just an exception to the minimum for some players. Now, the Players Association has to represent everybody. They don't want to leave anybody behind. But there's kind of always been this thing about, well, we'll give this group of players better contracts, better incentives, better benefits, and then you're going to have a group of players that are maybe on a minimum that is really not good. MLS for years had players on $15,000 a year contracts, Rob.
Yeah. And you're saying that our previous topic was Major League Soccer. Are they becoming attractive in the global player market? And it's like they're 30 years in. What will it take USL to be an attractive league for players to join? And in this whole debate and the things that are being negotiated, will this negotiation process that's being drawn out, obviously, will that make more players want to join the league? We shall see. But under a month, March 7th, opening day for USL Championship. So it's going to be interesting what happens as we get closer and closer and the pressure ramps up on these negotiation sessions. All right, one more news article before our guest at the top of the hour. Let's go on Morning Kickaround. All right, Major League Soccer, USL, and all the other American soccer leagues are spreading across the country, dotting the map as we go along. But there are 5 major cities that don't have them yet. Our friends over at the Soccer Business put out a graphic kind of demonstrating the 5 top markets, according to them, that are yet to have professional soccer teams in their town. And to be honest, number 3 surprises me. I didn't know that it was so big and so populated there.
Well, that's the Tidewater area of Virginia. It's down there in that bottom right corner of what is basically a triangle. Virginia is pretty much a triangle. I live in the top of that triangle, by the way. That's where I'm from. I'm from Northern Virginia. Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Newport News, very heavily. There's a naval base there. Lots of military families, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's where Timberland is from. Right? It's where Missy Elliott is from. All of that Virginia, it's where the Neptunes are from. That is Virginia. But you didn't know that, Rob? That's like, okay. Anyway, just important to mention.
I knew they were all familiar with each other from back home. I did not know it was that area.
Allen Iverson is from there. Ronald Curry is not as important as Allen Iverson, but still, these people are. This is like it's a very rich culture and place in Virginia, and they do have a pro soccer history though. The Virginia Beach Mariners were a pro soccer team back in the day. That's the thing about most of these places on the list. Now they rank them not by population. Our Soccer Business friends are ranking them by like the desirability of them as marketplaces, I guess, for clubs. That's kind of their approach. So
Yeah.
West Palm Beach, Boca Raton, Delray Beach, affluent, soccer-friendly market, meaning they got cash and soccer's kind of popular there. So why wouldn't you want to put a team there? Then Baltimore, which the fact that Baltimore, Maryland does not have a pro soccer team is ridiculous to me. It is insane to me that there's no pro soccer team. And a couple things have happened in the history of that town. There was at one point, if you don't know about this, it'll blow your mind. Crystal Palace, Baltimore. Please go look up the history of Crystal Palace, Baltimore, which is one of the, there's lots of dead soccer clubs in American soccer history. Crystal Palace, Baltimore is among the more ridiculous dead soccer clubs in American soccer history. But I know DC United has long planned, or they've talked about their idea for their MLS Next Pro team to play in Baltimore. And they had previously been invested and had Loudoun United. They then sold the majority ownership of Loudoun United to a local business person. I believe that person involved in minor league baseball or something. Loudoun United is still a going thing. You remember the story last year or whatever? I think it was last year, right? Pablo Maurer actually came on this show. I interviewed him about it, about the lack of professional standards at Loudoun United, despite the season they were having, all those things. I think things have improved, but Loudoun United is an ex-urban team, whatever. DC was like, okay, we're going to go do our own thing. In Baltimore, have yet to do that. Not that an MLS Next Pro team is what Baltimore deserves. Baltimore deserves better than that. They really do. And again, it's strange to me that there hasn't been a real attempt to find a place to play. I see.
Before you move on there, has Baltimore ever been used as like a bait for the moving a team away so that they get a new stadium? Like Las Vegas has been used for that, and there's always been like kind of a bait city.
No,
I haven't even heard Baltimore in that mix.
Well, I think a couple things are at work there. Baltimore gets afterthought status a lot of times in the Eastern Corridor, right? You got DC, you got Philadelphia, you got New York, you got Boston. All of those cities are mentioned before you kind of get to Baltimore. Baltimore's not the biggest. I mean, look, it says that the population is 2.8. It's a big town, but it's not the biggest among those. So it's in the shadow of DC. It's got a baseball team. It's got a football team. They are extremely passionate about those teams, but there is, I imagine, a question of how you extend that out and make sure a soccer team works. Maryland is a great soccer state, though, right? The University of Maryland soccer team is always good. That's more in the DC shadow than the Baltimore shadow in terms of where it's located, but still. And I play French Horn is giving us some history. Maryland Bays, NASL, you play at various levels. Baltimore Comets, NASL. You also do have a Baltimore Blast indoor team. I mean, indoor soccer is a weird thing, and people don't always engage with it. But they've been a thing for a very long time. So I don't know why Baltimore gets left out of this. Virginia Beach, New Orleans. New Orleans is interesting to me too. I don't know enough about New Orleans. I've actually never been to New Orleans, so I don't know enough about New Orleans to know if there's real support for a professional team. I know they had the New Orleans Jesters, and we actually did report on a USL effort that kind of bubbled up and then disappeared into nothing. So I don't know where we are with that. And then Memphis, and obviously Memphis has a recent sad history of a soccer club that came and went with Memphis 901. And their problem, like so many other teams, is that they needed a better stadium situation. They could not find it. And so the owner said, we can't do this anymore, sold the franchise rights to Santa Barbara, which is somewhere in the process of maybe playing soccer too. So, I don't know, man.
Yeah, that might be a tarnished franchise envelope there. As it dissolved pretty quickly there in Memphis, took a lot of folks by surprise. Definitely looped in with the lack of a soccer-specific stadium. Went out to California. We haven't seen anything yet. Chris popping in. Jesters for a long time were one of the largest summer amateur teams in terms of attendance. And interesting there, Chris, a USL2 expert there chiming in, part of the MK Ultras. Interesting that the top of the list here, West Palm Beach, Boca Raton, Delray Beach. I've been there, beautiful place. I've heard it teased a lot, but there's a saturation of the market. You'd think that might reduce some of the attractiveness with so many teams in the area.
Well, we've heard, we would shout out to Chris. I think it was Chris maybe I got this wrong, but I know in the Discord somebody put up that map of the various coasts because we were talking about the coasts of Florida, because every coast seems to have a new soccer club popping up as a possibility. Somebody's investing in something. They have a stadium plan, or they have an owner who wants to make something happen. West Palm Beach, I don't know which coast it's on, and somebody can help me with that. Yeah, north of Fort Lauderdale, but I think far, and obviously Inter Miami is moving to actual Miami. Miami FC is moving down to Homestead, which is south of Miami. So you do kind of have an opening north of the city, right? North of Miami, up the coast. And I will tell you, like, this is just scuttle. This is nothing. I'm not reporting. This is not hard reporting. I don't have details, but I recall being at a United Soccer Coaches Convention 5, 8 years ago. Pinning it down is tough. And I ran into a friend of mine in the business, somebody who works in the business side of soccer, not in the media side. Talked to this friend, and he had been working for another professional sports enterprise, not soccer, but he had told me Josie Altidore is going to invest and launch a team in West Palm Beach. Josie Altidore was going to be involved in the ownership of a club in West Palm Beach. Now, that didn't happen, and Josie's moved on to other business interests. He's got a bunch of things going on. If you see Josie Altidore out there, he's out there. So I don't know. I mean, again, there is something right now that's supposed to be happening with some polo player, like internationally renowned polo player, and I mean the kind with the horses and the mallets. But that hasn't happened yet. So we are just watching we're watching these plans kind of stall in a bunch of places. And as I said, we are taking an abundance approach to American soccer, and I'm okay with just kind of throwing things out there to see what sticks. But as we've seen in some other places, including a USL League One effort that has kind of gone haywire because an owner went missing. We don't know if we'll get into the details of that. USL doesn't look good when this stuff happens.
No, it doesn't. And we'll see if any of these cities on this list do eventually get a pro soccer team. Definitely efforts at the grassroots levels, I'm sure, at all these cities, but pro soccer TBD. Thank you, viewers, for your comments during the show so far. And if you'd like your comments on screen, become a member. Just a few dollars a month gets you the status of channel member. Become an MK Ultra. And you can get in there, and then you also get access to the Morning Kickaround Discord server, amongst many other perks. I see our guest is waiting in the wings, so let's move right along with Get to Know Your District here on Morning Kickaround. On the latest edition of Get to Know Your District here on Morning Kicker, and we're going to the deep south of Texas, to the Rio Grande Valley, and to learn more about this distinct American soccer district, we now welcome in Jamal Fayyad. He's coming in from the Rio Grande Valley Red Crowns, who played their first season in 2025 in the league for clubs and setting their sights higher up the pyramid. Good morning, Jamal, and welcome to Morning Kickaround.
Hey, good morning, fellas. Thanks for having me. First and foremost, I like to do this whenever we do shows like this. Just thank you both for what you do. I think one thing we're missing at this level of soccer especially is storytellers and people to keep folks updated on everything that's happening. So I just can't appreciate enough the things that you guys are doing and the consistency that you do it and the top work that you guys do. So thanks for having me, and thanks for all you do.
You're an amazing person, Jamal. I can tell that just off the bat. No, thank you very much. It's very kind of you. We appreciate that. I mean, but we need you obviously here to tell your story so we can disseminate this. And, you're here because you would like people to know about Rio Grande Valley Red Crowns. I'm going to throw the logo up on screen, the badge for Rio Grande Valley Red Crowns, because that goes. I like it a lot. That's a good looking badge. And I'm sure our chat will appreciate that as well. So Jamal, tell us about your club.
Yeah, so I started my soccer career in the USL Championship with the RGV Toros, and I mean we all know the sad story of how that ended. And I remember thinking like I was done with the sport. Once a butcher sees how the steak is cut, you're not craving steak, right? So I was good just being a fan, and I'll give you guys the elevator pitch. It took a trip to England watching lower league soccer to see what these clubs can do for a community. And I was thinking, like, this can happen back home, but I think it has to be done right. So, coming back from that trip, we took the next 2 to 3 years studying American lower league soccer and seeing what worked, what didn't work. And we took the best practices we saw and we created the Red Crowns. And the way we came up with our brand, with our identity, is we send QR codes throughout all the hotspots in the Rio Grande Valley, and it had nothing to do with soccer. It was questions about home. What makes you think of home? What colors make you think of home? What animals do you think of? What's a good Saturday night to you? And we took all that information and we got it to our designers. Our design team was Tyler Blake, who's involved with Vermont Green, and they seem to be doing some things pretty well. And we had a local designer who also works for the Houston Rockets, just because he had a feel of the local scene and how the locals, what they like, what they don't like, and that's how we came up with the badge and the crest and the brand. And the one request I try to stay out of everything, but I said put 956, our area code, in the badge. And if you look at our badge, 9 shapes make the parrot. 5 pointed crown and 6 segmented feathers. So we wear 956 on our hearts every time we take the pitch.
Wow. Thank you for that. That was a very eloquent pitch in there. So the red crowns, I'm assuming that's a bird that's native to the area.
Yeah, so we're the world, or the birding capital of the U.S. People come from all over the world down here because of the migration patterns. All the birds in the southern region or in the southern hemisphere, and all the birds in the northern hemisphere meet here. There's a parrot though that is from northern Mexico. And naturally, the only place you can find them is northern Mexico and southern Texas, the Rio Grande Valley. Zoologists, however, through the pet trade, realized that when these parrots were taken from their home into places like California, Florida, all across the world, as long as these birds were with their flock, they would adapt and thrive. And I like to compare that to our folks. We go through devastating hurricanes with where we're placed. We had a devastating freeze 2 years ago. But it's like, at the end of the day, politics, your favorite football team, all that doesn't matter anymore. We all pull together and we thrive as a flock. And so it was a beautiful parallel. And the fact that you can only naturally find these birds down here in the Rio Grande Valley, it made sense. The stars literally aligned for us.
That's incredible. I mean, so you have a identity, right? A well thought out, distinct, locally focused identity. Love that. I love something that ties in. That's what I always yell about when we get city name FC. It's like you have so much that you can lean into no matter where you are, and that's what you chose. So I appreciate this a lot. So what are the what's the moment for the club in terms of the play on the field and building out support and things like that, and obviously ambition here, because we want to see clubs grow, but we want to see that happen in positive and healthy ways.
Yeah, so one thing is, you look at some of the most successful MLS clubs right now, and they started at the grassroots level, and that's what I tell folks, especially the guys that are hardcore fans, that understand the alphabet soup of U.S. soccer and know what league means what. I tell them, like, the ambition is to go as far as we can go, as far as USL Championship, MLS, like, the stars are out there for us to reach. But I want our fans to feel a part of that journey, and I would like the slow and steady, or the scenic route. And that's why we have this ambition to join the League for Clubs Pro-Am. That's kind of where we would like to go. I think it's financially, it's friendly, it's doable. As opposed to taking a huge risk and jumping straight to, let's just say, USL 1. With the Pro-Am, maybe we can make mistakes and recover enough to where we were able to play year 2, year 3, year 4. So, where we end up in 15, 20 years from now, I don't know what that answer is, but the ambition is to take this thing as far as possible. I think we have a hungry fan base here for soccer. We have a very talented, number of players here in the Rio Grande Valley. We're always in the running for state for soccer in high school. I remember our time with the Toros. We saw this missing space where we had a lot of kids who were talented, but for one reason or another, either didn't go to college or didn't play pro. And I tell everybody this: we're in a part of the country that we're in the top of every negative list, most obese, poorest county, but in the bottom of every great list, right? Education standards and all this other stuff. So I'd like to see the Red Crowns as a way to promote the great things we have here in the Rio Grande Valley, and a way for these kids to reach for some of these goals, whether it's college or playing pro, through the beautiful game and hopefully through our club.
Yeah, you're hitting on some great notes here, and like trying to grow this new club or rebirth a professional soccer, or at least a soccer club in your area as a community asset to get your city off those negative lists and boost them up. But you said on the ground and do well in high school, and there was a pro team there. So was there a big following for the Toros that just one day was left without somebody to support? Or what was that kind of the transition from the Toros leaving to now where you are?
Yeah, any club dissolving, it's going to hurt, right? We had our Stampede. That was a supporters group. I think those guys took it the hardest. They were there every single game in 100-degree heat sometimes, cheering on the guys. And so it was rough. But, I think where we really excel, and I don't mean to bash anyone prior to us, but the fact that the branding, everything we've done with community input, I think people see that. And so it's been fun. I think we've gravitated some of the old Toro fan base over to the Red Crowns. There was definitely a missing piece. I think once the Toros left, there was people needed something to do, especially in the summer months. Here's the trickiest part for us. So the Rio Grande Valley is made up of 38 counties. The Rio Grande Valley Toros were in McAllen, Edinburgh area, which is like our metroplex. That's about 30 minutes from where we play. We play in Harlingen, Texas. We're in the center of the Rio Grande Valley. And then about 30 minutes southeast from us is Brownsville, which recently made headlines because USL was down there checking out if Brownsville is a viable option for a pro club in the future. So when we came up with this, we were scouring the Rio Grande Valley to see what made sense for us. And to me, Harlingen made the most sense. We have a major airport, we have 2 major hospitals, and we're centrally located so that we can get that Toros fan base that otherwise maybe wouldn't go all the way to Brownsville. And we can get that Brownsville fan base, for whatever reason or another, never really went out to Edinburgh, McAllen to see the Toros. So yes, Toros did a great job of the McAllen, Edinburgh area, but there's a whole other side of the Rio Grande Valley that I think went underserved. And so we're hoping to capture all of that.
That's interesting because obviously, this is not a place I think a lot of us are very, educated on. When we saw the Brownsville news, I think I had heard of Brownsville. I knew it was way, way, way down there, but I didn't know a lot about how it connected to the rest of that region or what that is. And I think people will probably go, oh, well, soccer must be huge there. But I know that obviously RGV Toros, I don't know. I don't remember the exact story as to why the club folded. Jamal, I'm sure you can tell us, but I know that there's a college football team that's going to be occupying the stadium where the Toros played. So, that thing about, should there be a latent soccer community? Yeah, probably. How do we actually service that community in ways that are not about like making something big or bigger than it needs to be, but doing something that's sustainable?
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that because so UTRGV plays at the former Toros home, and it's a beautiful facility. It was my favorite, non-biased opinion. It was my favorite stadium in USL whenever things were up and running for soccer. But when we were looking for our home, that was kind of I was hard on that, and I probably made it harder on our staff and our investors. So we took an abandoned baseball field. We had options to play at some high school stadiums. We had options to play at other soccer-specific, or not soccer-specific facilities, but other facilities that had turf. But I went to an abandoned baseball field because we could have full ownership of that. And when that soccer fan, when that soccer snob comes in, he doesn't see a baseball diamond anymore. He doesn't see football lines. He sees a pitch. And the reason I was so big on that is because we're in an educated fan base. We're in an area with an educated fan base that already has loyalty to their clubs. I can't just put a lower league American team and expect a generational Tigres fan or a generational America fan to just jump on board and love us, right? So I was telling our staff, like, we have to look authentic. We have to look real. So when they come in, they don't see these football lines and think, oh man, this is amateur hour again, right? So we sacrificed a few things to make sure that we had a pitch. One of the best compliments I had last season was a fan who went and saw, I want to say, Charlton Athletic in England, and a few years back, and he was like, this is the closest thing in America that I've ever been to a Charlton Athletic match. And so to me, that was, being another soccer nerd, I was like, thank you. Like, it's working. So I think it's important for us to gravitate towards those fans and kind of draw a hard line to American football, college football. You can have that and have a great time, but now you have a true soccer experience.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I don't love like being one of those people who's just like blindly reactionary when I see football lines, or it's kind of an odd fit for whatever the soccer team is trying to do in a place, because obviously these things are hard, right? These things are difficult. Finding a proper place to play, making it work for you. I just mentioned that one of the costs that USL teams often have is taking a baseball field and turning it into a soccer field, because that's the stadium in town that they can utilize to get 5, 10, 8, 5, 8, 10,000 people into a building. So I try not to be reactionary with that, but absolutely, like, if you can find a way to make soccer look good, that to me, that's like half the battle right there, because it's so easy for even somebody who doesn't understand the game to look at this and go, well, obviously they're just like, who knows if this is going to last? They're playing on somebody else's field. None of this stuff feels like you are established. And I say all the time, this is what I say about, fully professional teams, but obviously I'm sure it can apply to you guys and anybody else. When you have a stadium that is identified as your stadium, you have roots in the ground. People can drive by and go, oh, that's where Red Crowns play, right? And then you are permanent in the mind. There's object permanence is a factor in American soccer.
Yeah, no, you're 100% correct. And it was a field that it was built in 1950, and when I went to England on that journey to find myself to start this whole thing, I went to Wrexham right before all the chaos of Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, and hearing stories like that, turning their old race course into a pitch, and you hear these other clubs that turn their rugby stadiums into a pitch, and I was like, this is part of the story, and it's something that we like to embrace, and I like to bring it up as much as possible. Bringing that place back to life, setting roots for ourselves, like you said. But if it wasn't for the stadium, we're not here today talking about Pro-Am. We're not talking about we want to reach for the stars. The only reason any of that is possible, like you said, is we actually have a home that a lot of the clubs don't have. They're sharing it with a high school. They're sharing it with the municipalities, and on the weekends they need it for youth soccer, youth academies. So I think we have this advantage where we have roots that we can grow and hopefully take it to the next level.
Yeah, that home venue certainly seems like it gives you a leg up and a solid platform to really explore the possibilities of what the club could be and what a match day is. So in contrast to some of the opponents you play in the league for clubs and potentially in the further, what does a match day look like at your home venue?
Oh man. So, I like to zig when a lot of people zag. I do a few things that my old boss, mutual friend of ours, Ron Patel, wants to, strangle my neck. So one thing I do, free of charge, every single game we play, we invite a local restaurant to come in. We don't charge anything to them, set up shop, and they can sell concessions as long as it's not, hot dogs, popcorn, the usual suspects. We take care of that. But the reason I do that is because our season ticket holders don't get bored of the same thing over and over and over. So game 1, we had ramen. We had ramen at our game. Game 2, we had Chinese dumplings. Game 3, we had Texas barbecue brisket sandwiches. Game 4, we had, I can't think off the top of my head, maybe smash burgers or something like that. But every game we had something different. That's just on the concession side. On our VIP side, you have on-pitch seating. The HEB Park where the Toros played had that, and I loved it. But if you had tickets to our on-pitch VIP area, you had our local winery here in town come by, bring you wine, free of charge. So you had a free wine tasting with the owner of the winery to explain exactly what you're sipping, what you're drinking, where that grape's from. So something for mom to do while dad and son are watching the match. Halftime last year, our last game, we had an impromptu lucha libre fight that nobody knew what was happening, and it was something that me and our marketing team riled up. So we try to be as authentic to the Rio Grande Valley as possible. Lucha libre, it thrives down here. It's something that people love to do. We love to eat. Again, we have the whether proud or not, we're the fattest area in the country. So we want what a typical Saturday in the Rio Grande Valley would be in our field, with the team to cheer on.
Yeah, this is interesting, right? So one of our ultras, George, if you own it, I mean the stadium, you can serve alcohol. There are lots of clubs that can't do stuff like that because they don't have the legal ability to do that. So that's obviously a lift.
Well,
is there a club, Jamal, for you that is kind of the role model for Red Crowns? I mean, do you look at another club and say, if we can be that, let's be that?
Yeah. So before I move on to that, I appreciate the setup. We actually have our own branded beer with the local brewery. So we have a Red Crown lager that we serve at our games. And it was such a hit. I went to the brewery last week to go visit the fellas. We're having a second beer, a dark beer released this year as a thank you for what we did with them last year. So be on the lookout for that. We do a sip and pick event where we invite local artists to draw the beer can design, and then we'll get the fans together and they'll vote on their favorite can. There's a few. So when we were studying what looked good, what didn't look good, I think you'd be crazy to be at this level of soccer and not look at what Hitchcock does. Michael Hitchcock is a godfather, right, of this level, especially in Texas. So we look at what he does and what all his clubs do. They're doing something right. I think in every league, we try to take ideas here and there. And so New Mexico does incredible things in the USL Championship. And these MLS clubs that started grassroots level, Portland, Seattle, I like to show fans, look what Seattle's doing right now, right? And I show them, but this is how it started. And so we only grow as far as our fan base wants to grow. And I can sit here and talk all day about Pro-Am, USL 1, where we want to go. But there's also a world that I tell everybody, if the fan base tells us like, hey, we actually like our $10 tickets, we like $2 hot dogs, then we don't go. I think we've built something here. We've built a place for opportunity. And if the fans want to stick to that, I'm okay with that. At the end of the day, this is their club, right? So
I love that. I love that. I mean, I think, it's so baked into us as Americans that we have to be, if you're not growing, you're dying. This idea that, growth is a means in itself, or an ends that justify whatever means you need to get. And obviously that's not healthy for this particular sport in our particular country. So I appreciate that. I'm glad that you're saying that, because that I think a lot more clubs need to think in those terms rather than being like, how do we get to the next level? How do we shoot for the moon? How do we get bigger and better and spend more money? In particular, again, spending more money means charging more money, and then you're a different club. Now your whole identity has changed, and it's not for me to decide whether the fans of Detroit City FC should feel aggrieved over what their club has done in the last 5 or 6 years, or a club that goes from an amateur level to a pro level, or whatever it is. Not for me to decide if I'm not a stakeholder, but you have to wonder if there are people left behind. So I'm glad to hear you say that.
Yeah. And, and that's what we're doing this year. We sell a season ticket. We have discussions with those people like, hey, how would you feel if maybe this season ticket doubled next year, but you're going to have signed players, professional players. And so there are discussions that are worth having and that are necessary for us to decide if we make that jump or not.
Well, Jamal, Fayyad from RGV Red Crowns, thank you so much for learning us and educating us on not only the soccer district of Rio Grande Valley, but of the Red Crowns, your club. Sounds very exciting. Lots of prospects in the future. You've made me hungry and very thirsty here early this morning, and excited for the prospects of what might come for RGV Red Crown. So thank you so much for coming on Morning Kickaround and getting to know your district.
Yeah, no, thank you both. Again, thank you for everything you guys do. And it was a pleasure to finally meet you both. Big fan of the show. And everybody else, keep up with us. RGV Red Crowns on all platforms. And vamos Cotoros.
There you go. I love it. Yeah. Thank you, Jamal.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much,
guys.
Jamal. And thank you, viewers. If you enjoyed that, feel free to become a channel member. MK Ultras get priority commenting on screen during these live streams, as well as bonus content and access to the Morning Kickaround Discord server where conversations like this, there is a local channel for conversations about teams like you just heard from. There's a thread about getting to Ultras building their teams where maybe a couple years ago, Jamal might have been in the thread like that, talking about all of his plans for his upcoming team, and then all the way up the food chain to the national teams as well. So become a member if you're able to, or tell a friend, or even just hit the subscribe button. All right, we've got a couple minutes for one more segment before the show is out. Keep it tuned here, Morning Kickaround. Welcome back here on Morning Kickaround, wrapping up our Monday on February 9th. Loved that guest. Thank you once again to Mr. Fayyad for joining us this morning and get to know your district. Love dotting the map, digging in and getting to know kind of the landscape of all the different places with soccer stories. We didn't know that story, and many others in the audience probably didn't know any of that.
And this is a thing too, like we are going to go out and dig, and we are going to try to find our own sources, and we are going to ask questions, and we're going to bring on people that we think can inform us and help us and you know, give us a better sense of what's happening out there in the world. But I say this to my kid all the time. You don't know what you don't know. Like somebody has to tell you things, that passed on knowledge, right? That thing we're sharing. So if you were out there listening to this, if you like American soccer, if you care about American soccer, and you have a story about American soccer that you think is interesting that we should be talking about, you tell us. I can't guarantee we're going to get to all of them. I can't guarantee you that it will be the first thing we talk about on the next show. But if we don't know it, you can help us know it, right? You can help us to be like, oh, there's something happening in this place that we were unaware of. And in Jamal's case, it's what's happening in Rio Grande Valley with his club that is trying to go into a slightly different place with their efforts, which is a pro-am league. They've got a fan base. They want to, you know, they want to represent their community. I mean, again, not to be overly naive about these things because stuff changes, but everything about what Jamal just said is what we want in an ideal local small community soccer club, right? It shouldn't matter if you're signing the biggest players on the planet. It shouldn't matter if your stadium has suites for the VIPs, right? If you care about the game. Now, I'm not going to tell you not to care about the VIP suites and the big money players if that's what your choice is. But if you don't live in a place where you can go down the street and watch the best players in the world or the best players in the country or whatever, this is what we want, because we grow this to the point of dotting the map of American soccer. And once we're all dotted, who knows what we can achieve.
Yeah, that was a great interview. And you touched on an important note there. Like, even if the team down the street from your house doesn't have global superstars, there is something that absolutely hits different about the team playing for your town. You know, Jamal said that, like, there's not a lot of people that know that region, the Rio Grande Valley. And it's one of those places, I'm not sure there's millions and millions of tourists that have their own little personal experiences, but that doesn't take anything away from their feeling about their own team. It might even empower them more that this is something that is representing my community that spans outside of my town.
Look,
and I said that I was and there was a supporters rally for my team, Oakland County FC, last week, and I explained just that. Is this team is not a farm team for anything else. It is battling for us. And also, another note that makes that more interesting, that there is upward mobility there. Not only is it representing their town and it's in that area of the country, there is not many independently owned soccer fields in this country. I think Chris put it up during in the chat that there's probably less than 10 teams at that level that own their own facility and are specifically soccer fields.
Yeah, I mean right. We have made it. We have made it. The situation in our country has made it more difficult for these things to happen organically.
Mhm.
And that's partly about our sporting culture and how we think about it, right? Do we don't really do this, right? We don't do sort of an amateur club, a high-level amateur club, or even a low-level professional club that sort of represents our community in real distinct and connected ways that feels like, when you are a fan of a professional of an NFL team or a basketball team or a Major League Baseball team, even though those things are very clearly about making money, even though those things are very clearly corporate and owned by billionaires and all that stuff, most of them have a depth to their history and a connection to their city that becomes part of the identity of being from that place, right? You don't have to be like the biggest NFL fan to like immediately call into a conversation your team when you talk to somebody about where you're from and why you're proud of where you're from and things like that, right? You're Pittsburgh, you're a Steelers fan, it's there, it's your blood, right? The thing about smaller towns is because they're not represented at that level, right? We have college sports that has done a lot of that lifting.
Yeah.
This is so weird. I went to this party last night for the Super Bowl. It was half Super Bowl party. It was actually hosted by a Pats fan, but this Pats fan is married to a lovely Puerto Rican woman. So she had her friends over in a different part of the house to watch the halftime show. It was all about Bad Bunny and the halftime show and what he was going to do to celebrate Puerto Rico, right? So I'm in this very weird situation where I'm a football fan and I know the game and I'm kind of watching with the guys, the gringos, and then I'm also, very interested in Puerto Rican culture and I love celebrating that and talking to my wife and hablo español, so I'm there with them as well, going and I run into these two Irish women who were there through a connection I don't really understand, but they were two Irish women. They did not understand the football. They did not really understand the Bad Bunny, but they were there to learn. They were there to engage, right? So I'm having a conversation with them, and we end up talking about Gaelic football, Rob.
Hey, that's fun. I love Gaelic football.
So excited to tell me about Gaelic football. One of them is a Kerry fan. The other one is a Dublin fan, and Dublin won 6 in a row, but Kerry's winning. All these things like I'm vaguely aware of, but not really aware of.
Mhm.
But they play that. Those are amateurs that play GAA sports.
It's counties.
Yeah, they're counties. They make money in other ways, and they're not exactly, they're not like paupers or anything, but they're not playing for money for their team. They're representing their county to go win the national championship. And I was like, that speaks to me so much as a soccer fan, because we don't know how to connect that with our soccer yet, right? We don't have that. Our big league is too young, or we have all these teams in Europe that overshadow our league. So what can we do to grow that as a culture in our sport? And the answer is these truly independent teams in places like the Rio Grande Valley that can represent the community in ways that the NFL team 2 hours away can't. But even if they were like, oh, I'm a big Texans fan, where's the soccer you're engaging with? Is it the Dynamo? Probably not. So why not have, or even if it is, why not have somebody in your backyard? And why does it matter if that's not Cristiano Ronaldo? Why does that matter if you're not, what league you're in or how far you're traveling? Why does that matter? That if you are willing to go support the college football, the college basketball, any of those, why wouldn't you want this? And again, it's true. If it's truly independent and reflective of your culture, that is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, well said there. I liked everything you said there, Jason. And I'll just put my little personal note on it. I'm a lifelong Liverpool fan. My dad's family's from there, and I was indoctrinated about 5 years old with Liverpool glory days on VHS tapes. But the first local game I went to, I instantly became a supporter, like rooting for the team, playing down the street from my house. Couldn't love that anymore. And it's sent me on this journey of, becoming a soccer anthropologist. And now with Jason and everyone here with MK Ultras dotting the map of the American soccer landscape. Before we go, though, we should highlight February 18th one more time. KICK-A-THON 2026. Clang the clanger, special guests, games, some surprises, and more in our first marathon stream of Morning Kickaround.
Yeah, we're going to go hard. We're going to go long. We're going to bring up a lot of soccer topics, and we're going to dive in. And you're going to get Like that little taste of I'm clearly fired up today. Like I'm clearly on something today. Not literally. Like I just mean like the energy level is good. I'm very excited. Last night was fun. I'm celebrating my wife's culture, my son's culture, and celebrating my game as well.
And the
My
Patriots didn't
dream,
win.
the Patriots didn't win. That's also very important. My dream here is to really like tie my Puerto Rico thing and my soccer thing together, but I haven't figured that out yet. And obviously, there's a lot going on. But the Kick-A-THON is going to be an opportunity to help lift the show, right? So it can be, we tell you this all the time, just spread the word, help people come find us, right? Help people find us and land here so we can continue to talk American soccer in ways that will help spread the word, grow the culture, do things like talking to Jamal Fayyad about his team in Rio Grande Valley, do things like dotting the map, talking about the stories that are out there, celebrating people who are starting clubs in their own communities, which again is a big part of our discourse right now. Discord. That's the discourse on Discord. I'm sure people have said that before.
Yep.
So if you can't give us any money, fine. That's great. Be a fan, be a listener, be a ultra or be a supporter and tell people about the show. And that's great. If you can help us grow through some sort of support monetarily, that's awesome too, because we want to take this thing on the road. We want to expand what we can do. We want to improve the quality of the show. We want to find somebody to help help cut the show up so we can spread the gospel through social media. We want to be able to pay our producer Jenny to do the work that she's been doing for us for a year. So all those things are important parts of the future of this show, and you can be part of that.
All right. I don't think there's anything more to be said. We got great guests lined up for the remainder of the week. We're going to count down to kickoff with Boise in the middle of the week, and then maybe dig into these USL and USLPA negotiations from a legal standpoint a little bit more. But until we see you next time, everybody stay warm, be brave, and always enjoy your soccer.